Hello and welcome everyone. My name is John Michael Moy and I'm your host for today's webinar presented by Product That Counts. Product That Counts is a nonprofit dedicated to enriching the careers of over 500,000 product managers globally. We accomplish this through a variety of avenues, including our renowned industry awards, podcasts, and educational webinars like the one that you're attending today. Today, we're extremely honored to have Leslie Chau, Senior Director of Product Management at Genesys, who is here to discuss why product managers are not the CEO of a product. With over 15 years of building product culture and motivating product teams at Genesys and IBM, as well as serving as an advisor for Enrich and Stanford University, Leslie brings a lot of passion for understanding and motivation for driving high-performance product teams. Understanding the role of product and the distinction between product and the CEO is critical in the context of a product-centric organization. Leslie will share what he has learned in his journey, as well as providing some hot takes on product management career development beliefs to help excel your craft as a product leader. When Leslie and I met a few months ago, he pitched this topic to me and he was very passionate about it. After letting things settle, we thought it was very thought-provoking, especially since product managers are often told that they are, quote, the CEO of their product. Truthfully speaking, it's a line that I've often used myself when mentoring product managers. So without further ado, I'd like to warmly welcome Leslie. Leslie, the stage is yours.
All right, thanks for the intro, John Michael. So let me share the slides that I prepared. And all right. Okay, so here we go. So thank you for the introduction. I'm Leslie Chau. So the title of this presentation is Product Managers Are Not the CEO of the Product and Other Hot Takes. So we're going to try to keep it light. It is the evening here for me in New York City. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Leslie Chau again. I live in New York City. I'm a product management professional. I've been in the tech industry for almost 20 years. Almost 20 years, I guess, if you think about it that way. I currently work at a company called Genesys. We are an enterprise contact center as a service provider. I'm a senior director of product management there. I focus my work around how to automate work and automate processes for companies that run contact centers. I also currently am an advisor at Stanford. It sounds better than it is. I work with students. I mentor them throughout their master's degree at Stanford. Prior to that, I worked at a company called IBM. I was there for almost 12 years. Various roles at IBM in technical sales, and then in product management. IBM is one of those great companies where it's a conglomerate. So there's lots of business units within IBM in the tech industry, everything from services to software to hardware to cloud. And so I had the privilege of really being a product manager in many parts of the organization and really grew up there. I tell people that I grew up at IBM. While I was at IBM, I had a little side gig with my life partner, my wife. We had a small restaurant, food business in Austin, Texas. A little bit of a passion project. As you can tell, I can't sit still. I like to do many things on top of my day job. And then just truthfully, before that, I was doing, some career searching, a lot of job hopping. So I had various roles in pre-sales and consulting. My family is in the family business. So after I graduated, I did a little bit of a stint helping my family grow the restaurant business. My career journey brought me everywhere from Montreal to Toronto to a couple of years in Austin, Texas, and now I'm in New York City. One of the things that I recently started doing is growing my affiliations and my network in the tech community. So I'm part of two organizations, Round, where I'm a community organizer, and Enrich, where I am a member, fairly new member. So without further ado, let's get into the material that I prepared. I have prepared 3 hot takes. Again, I'll keep it light. A lot of these will be based on my personal experiences, people that I've talked to, other product managers I've encountered. So I'll share some real stories. Some of these are based on books I've read or webinars I've attended. This is just aggregate of a lot of the learnings I've had over the years. So hopefully for those of you that are listening live or listening to this podcast on demand later, this is just me sharing my knowledge. They're intentional to be thought-provoking. As you know, nothing is black and white. So let's keep it light. And then I'd love to, for you to reach out to challenge me on some of these topics. So to lead into the first hot take, 30% of product managers suffer from some kind of imposter syndrome. This is from the product school. They have a state of the product report in 2024. 30%. A lot of product managers that I mentor and I talk to, one of the first things that they're always worried about is, I'm not technical enough, or I don't have a technical degree, or I'm not a coder and I don't know how to work with my architect. And so this is my first hot take. I want to combat this kind of imposter syndrome that a lot of us have. Product managers don't need to be technical. And I think what's more important is curiosity and empathy. That is really one of the key skills that we need as product managers, to be very curious, don't assume, and to ask why. I think those are really more important skill sets for a product manager. So how do you gain that empathy? How do you gain that empathy and curiosity? You do need an appreciation for technology, and I'll explain the difference between appreciation for technology and being technical. What's more important for me in my experience is business experience, domain experience, sales and go-to-market experience. In order to have that empathy, to be able to ask the questions, to be able to dig deeper, you have to have a little bit of context for the business you're in, the domain that you're serving your customers, and how product moves from off the shelf into a customer's hands. And let me address this. Appreciation for technology is not the same as being technical. Appreciation for technology is focusing on opportunities that technology brings. What can new technology enable as opportunities and outcomes, versus being technical, you have a tendency to fall in love with technologies and solutions. You have a tendency to start solutioning and coming up with solutions, the how instead of the what and the why. So there's a really key difference there. Let me tell you a real PM story about someone called Sam. The names are changed to protect the innocent, but this is a real story of a PM who I know. So Sam's early career was just full of job hopping. He spent a whopping 9 months as a developer. So not technical by any means, right? And then did over 5 years of consulting and pre-sales and other kind of adjacent roles before becoming a PM. So he did a stint as a project manager implementing technology at customer sites. He did a stint as a consulting in customer offices for over a year. He did pre-sales, where he had pre-sales meeting weekly with their customers, who are all builders and users and decision makers. And he also had to do face-to-face meetings with procurement officers, sitting across the desk from a procurement officer, negotiating, understanding how the procurement process works. And as a PM, when he finally landed a role in PM, Sam was super self-conscious of not being technical enough. He looks around him and he sees that a lot of his peers came from a development background or an architecture background, and where they're in there kind of solutioning and jousting with the development counterparts. And he felt very self-conscious, that imposter syndrome. But what he found over the years was his experience and empathy gave him an edge, actually. That experience that he had, that varied experience in consulting and sales and project management, sitting in the office of a customer and weekly having meetings with them, understanding what their pain points are, knowing the customers and knowing that their career was on the line because they're trying to implement a piece of software, they're trying to acquire software, implement it, when it's missing a feature, what it means to him or her. Those kinds of experience became muscle memory for Sam, and it helped him have informed hypothesis when he didn't know the answer or he didn't know something. What he didn't know or what didn't jive with his experience, he was curious about, and he asks a lot of why. And so to wrap up the story, Sam progressed pretty well in his career with not being technical as a PM, and he's currently a director level PM. And he kind of leaned in on he wasn't technical enough to ask why and to be curious. And so for those of you listening back, don't have that imposter syndrome. Don't worry about not being technical enough. That's the number one thing I get when mentoring early career product managers. Oh, I'm not technical enough. Or, one of the best product managers that I've worked with has a psychology major, right? And he was one of the better product managers I've ever worked with because he got into the user and understanding the user and what they need. Do be wary of the very fine line between shooting at the hip or using your intuition based on your experience versus drawing on experience to make a hypothesis. That's something that I would advise. And consider whether you have enough of a range of knowledge to have that muscle memory, like I was saying. One of the other things I always mentor young or earlier to mid-stage product managers is to consider spending a couple of years outside of product management. If you want to be a better product manager, go do a little bit of technical sales, go do a little bit of solution consulting. That gives you that kind of empathy. It hones your empathy skills, gets you into the ground and seeing how customers actually use software. All right, and that leads me to my second hot take. My second hot take is all around this idea of networking. So I found a stat by Robert Cross, who's a researcher in what they call organizational network analysis. And Robert Cross found, and by the way, organizational network analysis, Google it. It's a well-known, studied, and with lots of empirical evidence. Well-connected workforces lead to a 20% increase in revenue. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that in an organization where the network bond between employees, between the workforce is strong, where employees are well connected to others, that leads to a 20% increase in revenue. So extrapolating that into my second hot take is, and it's actually related to one of my takeaways from the previous hot take, is product managers need to work less to be better product managers. It's crazy. Like, you work less to be a better product manager. And again, drawing on a set of studies around organizational network analysis, although that was a hot take, this is actually a very serious subject. I'm drawing a lot on research by Neha Shah at Microsoft. She's a lead researcher in the Microsoft Workplace software portfolio. And I attended a couple of her presentations, and for me, it was game-changing, right, in terms of how I spend my time as a product manager. I won't be able to do this justice, but the central idea of organizational network analysis is that you analyze a company as a set of network, the bonds that individual employees have between each other, analyzing that bond and the way that information flows. And what they found in organizational network analysis, in short, again, I won't do it justice, is that there are different roles and different points of this network if you view that connection between employees as a network. There are central influencers who have largest influence on a group of people. They're the social butterflies that are connecting many people. They're bringing people together. They also can become the bottlenecks. They're the one person in your company that knows everything about subject X, right? Another role is the broker. Brokers are, again, also social butterflies. They are what they call boundary spanners. So they go between different networks and they connect the different networks together, even though they are disconnected. It might be, when I'm talking about networks, it could be product teams, it could be business units, it could be different parts of the organization. These boundaries spanners or brokers are key to brokering information flow between disconnected networks within your company. And they're often that conduit of innovation. They let information span across these disconnected networks and to foster that innovation. Those are really key concepts of this kind of organizational network analysis. And why am I saying all this? The net of organizational network analysis is that when you have these kind of strong networks and these different roles within your network, and companies are encouraging that, it unlocks a competitive advantage for companies. Not only for companies, but and if I extrapolate that for you as a product manager, for you professionally and as a product manager inside the company, your value to the company increases because whether you're the broker or the central influencer, you're the conduit for information exchange. You're the one that are spanning these disconnected teams and making sure that you're brute forcing that connection between these different parts of the network. Again, 20% increase in revenue shown, empirically proven, right? So why does it matter in the context of that hot take? What I've come to really appreciate as I've progressed in my career is building a network is important. Networks broaden your perspective. They broaden your empathy and your curiosity. It prevents groupthink. It prevents these echo chambers that form within organizations when everybody's kind of thinking alike. Everybody talks to each other within the company who are hearing something from their boss and are spreading within that network only. Think of that kind of network diagram, right? Consider there is no body or no actor that reaches outside of this network. All the information flow is inside the network. That kind of fosters that groupthink or that echo chamber. When you are someone in this network that can span outside of the internal network and have that innovative ideas, bring it back into the company, that gives you a lot of value. It broadens your empathy, your perspective, and your curiosity that you bring to the organization. So yeah, spend less time being a product manager for your company, but spend more time building your network so that you can learn from other people. So Neha did this amazing self-assessment that really opened my eyes. Everything I said so far, very theoretical and high level. It really hits you when you start thinking about this, right? So for those of you listening back or those of you live, let's take a second. I want you to first, this is a self-assessment, right? List the top 5 people of your network inside of your company, wherever you work. List the top 5 people. And then have another list of the top 10 people of your network outside of your company. And it could be, many of you have weighted some, maybe you have more people within your network and not as many outside your network. Let's start with that list. Give you a second. Now, there's 3 dimensions I want you to consider. There's breadth of your network, the depth of your network, and then the range of your network. The breadth is about how broad is your network. So I want you to list characteristics of the people that you listed, whether it's their role, product manager, sales, developer, designer. Just list the correct characteristic, right? Gender, it could be industry, any kind of characteristics that you can consider for a person. Write that next to the names, the 5 people inside your company and the 10 people outside your company. Now consider, now take a look at that list. How broad is your network? When I did this, it was all product manager, product manager, product manager, product manager, product manager, right? And then it was like male, 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 female, right? And it was tech, 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 tech. Right? Think about that a little bit. How are you when you talk with, rely on people in your network, when you're exchanging ideas with people in your network? How do you think that broadens your empathy? How do you think that broadens your knowledge? All right, let's go to the next dimension. So the depth is how deep you go with your network. So out of the 15 names on your network that you wrote down, I want you to put a number from 1 to 10. 1 is you get on a call and you talk about the weather, how's your dog, what's your project like. 10 is you're getting marriage advice from them, right? Just put a number next to the names. And consider both the breadth dimension and the depth dimension together. And how much can you rely on your network to broaden your knowledge? Right? And then the last characteristic I want you to write down is how does your network connect you to other networks? This is the one that really hit me. Right? So just write a yes, no, or like write some kind of description for the names next to the 15 names that you wrote down, and how might you leverage these folks to connect you to other networks so that you can learn more about another subject, another industry, another role. So this for me was a super the self-assessment was a super eye-opening experience. It really allowed me to self-assess how well I am building my skills through a network, and how much I was really working within an echo chamber. So with all that, my hot take advice number 2 is you have to make time to build your network both inside and outside your company. You have to be intentional and deliberate about that breadth, that depth, and the range of your network. A lot of people, when they think about networking, they think about, oh, I'm lining myself up for my next job, or I want to go talk to some VP at Google so I can one day ask for a job. I think you have to be a little bit more intentional than that. While that might be true, a lot of people use networking to try to line up their next job, or build kind of sow the seeds for the future. There's a lot more value in, according to organizational network analysis and a lot of the empirical evidence, for you to leverage a network to broaden your knowledge so that you can be that broker inside your company and bring a lot of value to your company, even for the job that even if you have no intention of leaving the company, it brings you a tremendous value to broaden your network. All right, so that brings me to hot take number 3, which is I think the clickbait that got you into this video. A product manager is not the CEO of the product. Right? That's so. This, when John Michael and I were chatting about topics, this one really I knew was a provocative topic, because there's a lot of books where the writers talk about product manager as a mini CEO of the product, and it's really this kind of romanticized view of our roles as product managers. And sometimes you do feel like you are the CEO of a product when you're doing your work, because everybody comes to you asking for decisions. But I'm going to challenge that view, and I'm going to say that product managers are not the CEO of the product, and I'll tell you why. I think there are many similarities between the PM and the CEO. If you pull back, right? There's PM and the CEO are both responsible for the vision and the strategy. The scope is different. PMs are responsible for the vision and the strategy of your product. CEO of the company, right? I'm going to put aside any questions around seniority level, right? I'm just going to assume a relatively senior product manager for a product, right? PMs and CEO have to have really good communication skills. Product managers are responsible for communicating with clarity the vision, the strategy, the what and the why. CEOs are responsible for communicating company strategy and vision to investors, to the board of directors, to external parties, to the press, as well as to the company. PM and CEO are both asked to lead. PMs are asked to lead within the product team. CEOs are leading the whole company. And then PMs and CEOs both need really strong business skills. At the end of the day, we're building products that we commercialize, and product managers are asked to have that strong business skill so that when they're thinking about the what and the why, it hunts in the market. So those are similarities, and it's very easy to come to the conclusion that PMs are a mini CEO. But before I get to why I think PMs are not the CEO, let me start by a real PM failure story about Pauline. Pauline is a head of product for a big tech company, and she had a pet project. Right? A lot of senior leaders, CEOs, senior product managers have their pet project, especially PMs when they have a portfolio. And because this was her pet project, she was constantly ruling her team and on all decisions, architecture, design, product sales. She was not only CEO of the product, she was chief architect, she was chief revenue officer, she was lead design, and then she was also chief product officer. And the constant change in direction based on her weekly ideas. She would meet with a customer and pitch an idea, and then it would spark something new, and she would constantly change direction for her team. And there was no disagree and commit on the teams. Teams were punished, in fact, for disagreeing because she treated herself like the CEO of the product. And this is a real story. 6 years later, hundreds of millions invested, sky-high attrition rate, and there is still no viable product in the market. Right? And so this is a true story. This is a true story of a product leader who treated herself like a CEO of a product. And so what's the takeaway here? Why is this PM? Why do I believe the PM is not the CEO of a product? First of all, you're not the boss. As a product manager, you are not the boss of anybody, unfortunately. A lot of us know that. As a product manager, we are the expert in the what and the why, and we're really what we are chief collaborators. We are champion of ideas through our understanding and our empathy of the what and the why of the user, of the pain points. We lead by influence. We don't lead through positional power. We foster psychological safety at work because we need our colleagues in development and design, who especially those of our colleagues in development who by nature are probably not as comfortable with communication skills in team settings or in team collaboration settings. We want to, as leaders of the product, we want to foster that psychological safety for them to share their ideas. We work within a strategic framework. CEOs define the strategic framework. We work within that strategic framework. And it's really important for PMs to get input and buy-in from stakeholders, from development, from design, from sales. We cannot unilaterally make these decisions because we're not the boss. And more importantly, when we do unilaterally make ideas, we don't get buy-in from our stakeholders. Our stakeholders kind of ignore us sometimes. Or in the case of Pauline, they leave the company. They vote with their feet. They leave the company. Right? So those are really the key reasons why I feel very strongly that the PM is not the CEO. We by the nature of our jobs, we lead through our ideas, through our being the expert of the what and the why, and we're really chief collaborators. I think that's why you see in the industry the growing popularity of the role of the chief product officer, someone who is responsible, who is really the positionally the highest to exert these kinds of values for the company. They're focused on collaboration. They're focused on understanding the user. They're focused on outcomes, customer outcomes as opposed to worrying about all the other aspects of the business. When the PM acts as a CEO, as is in Pauline's case, you tend to, as the PM solution rather than understanding the underlying problem, you tend to think your ideas are the best because you're the boss, and you tend to be biased towards your own intuition versus input from your stakeholders. And teams lose the motivation, and it leads to quiet quitting and attrition, and really not high-performing teams, the opposite of high-performing teams. And so that's it. Those are my PM hot takes. I went fast for those so that we can leave some time for Q&A. At this point, I'll pause. John Michael, did you want to take over from here?
Yeah, no. First of all, thank you, Leslie, for your overall presentation. I really, on a personal level, I really appreciated how you referenced Neha's organizational behavior, studies, because I can appreciate how, I think sometimes there's an emphasis on delivery, about promotion, and I've read similar sort of studies of how there's a lot of things up beyond that, and to be very intentional about that. And I think sometimes we all get lost in terms of the job itself, in terms of imposter syndrome, pressures, and I really appreciate how it's about pausing. And I thought that was really, really insightful that you said.
Yeah. I want to add a little bit to that. I think a lot of us, myself included, earlier in my career, I viewed networking as secondary, as optional, as I only need to do it if I'm worried about my job, or I want to sow the seeds for my next job. But really, I've come to with time and with just reflection that, to your point, the pausing and the being intentional about how you're growing your skills is important. As we mature as product managers, there's not many, I love Marty Kagan's book. I love Melissa Perry's book. I've read both a couple times. I listened to Lenny's podcast. Like there's only so much of the 101s that you can learn, that there's just only so much you can do. What really starts setting, in my view, what starts setting me apart as a product manager, as a product leader, is the breadth of my knowledge, and that I'm bringing value to the company that I work at beyond what everybody else is saying in my company. I'll give you an example. As part of Round and Enrich, I've been meeting 1 million people, and one of the people that I met with, he's a product leader for a electric car company, and we were just we were getting to know each other and kind of appreciating each other's job, and he was explaining to me, like, you guys, you in enterprise software, you think user experience. You go do some user research, and you think user experience. Try a button. Try a button in the car, right? Like that's user experience. And I didn't really think about it that way. I thought, I thought that I knew everything about user research. When he went into the intricacies of what they do in vehicle manufacturing, in vehicle development, the user interface inside a car. When you're driving, you're pressing buttons and not looking at the dash. The level of rigor they go through in user research, I was completely floored. I learned so much from that 30-minute coffee.
Yeah. That's true. That's awesome. And to your point, when it comes to user interface with vehicles and whatnot, there's so many different levels of it. It's more than just UI. It's psychology of why things are intuitive. And I think it's really, really interesting. And it's like, I'm kind of I want to reference some of the things that you mentioned before about research, asking the why. I think whether you're a function of product engineering or, let's say, design, it's always about being curious, because I think it's very
Right.
easy to take a solution that like a competitor is using and say, oh, all we can do is finesse it, put our branding on it,
Right.
and then wait, and just like peanut butter spread it and saying this is what we need to do. And I think going back to your point around customer, every customer base is different, and it's really understanding out of all the different needs of the customer, what are the things that really matter to your customer base, and how does that essentially uh, support the overall business strategy, your target customer. So it's lots of intricacies. And one of the things I appreciate from your second point on terms of you're talking about being more efficient doing less. I think one of the this happens regardless of different levels, is that it's go 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 go, and a lot of times it's about saying, okay, why are we doing this? Are we just going on a hamster wheel, just moving things along, just reacting to things, versus pausing and saying, okay, is this a band-aid solution? Is this true
Right.
north in terms of what we want to do? And this kind of goes to, again, the distinction between a product manager and a CEO. I think that's where the business acumen has to set in, because if you're just going to execute and react to what a sales a customer does without understanding, why
Right.
is this a problem? Is this a workaround? Is it something that product doesn't actually control, or is this something which doesn't really matter? It's just like one blip. Are we reacting to because there's a stakeholder? To your point on key stakeholders, there's someone really influential in the organization that says, okay, drop all things and go. And that's not saying that they should or shouldn't do, but it's important to think through this before you react. And one of the things I tell all my product teams is your time is the most valuable commodity. And to your point, it's like you can only spend time doing every things. So I think that focus to outcomes is really key, which you mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I mentioned about depth of knowledge in my first hot take, I think that's really key. Having enough of depth of knowledge to that gives you the spidey senses when you are, like you were saying, John Michael, a lot of times um, we're going through the motions of product management. Oh, we got to define the requirements, write the PRD, do the one pager and good user research. And a lot of times we're going through the motions of our operating model wherever we work. And I think what sets you apart what can set you apart as a product manager is your spidey senses that you've gained through your depth of knowledge, depth of experience. I tell this a lot to the PMs that I mentor, that trying your hand in maybe just a year in technical sales or in some kind of customer facing role really does give you a much better perspective and allows you to stop and ask why,
Mm-hmm.
and make better decisions in the process.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's a question that just came up here. So one question is, so it looks like, and I'll kind of paraphrase the question. So I think what I really appreciate, Leslie, is that you were very transparent in terms of your journey through IBM, in terms of just holding
Yes.
different roles. So it's a two-part question. Question number one is, for those who are starting in product, like who want to get into product management, and I think you addressed the technical aspect of it, which might be a deterrent
Mhm.
for someone to get into product. What would you say, like would you in hindsight say is the right path? And what I would say, I think what I'll sort of elaborate on this is it what skill sets do you think are important, and
Yeah.
why? And I can definitely speak
Yeah.
to this too after
Yeah.
you.
I'll get it. I'll start and then I'll pass it on to you. Um, I I think that the more important skill as a product manager is your domain experience, your business experience, your curiosity, and truly your ability to empathize with the user. The Like I said, earlier, one of the best product managers that I've ever worked, not with, actually, I worked for. Um, his name is Jim. I think if he listens, but he'll know. Psychology major, and it just made him like the most curious person. And it's not like he was, he was doing like the devil's advocate kind of annoying, curiosity. He was asking the right questions, and he was curious in the right ways, and he wasn't technical, right? He didn't have the technical degree, or wasn't, never had a stint in development. But he had that depth of experience and that curiosity to to ask why. Why are we doing it this way? And he, one of the best product managers I've worked for.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's real. That's really interesting. I think the person you reference, I think one of the things that I find with product, like when people go into product management, there's a lot of vigor. Like I really want to get into this, and there's a lot of
Right.
like it's like I want to just get into this, dive into it, like throw all my energy into it. And one of the things when I look back, like the most effective product managers are the ones that are extremely precise and efficient. So, because I want to take what you just said, which was, there can be like a meeting where the product manager is trying to sort of huddle and get folks in the room to talk about, again, this is the problem here,
Yeah.
and part of it is listening, because I think before you ask questions, you understand the inputs, and to your point, there's SMEs on the architecture side, engineering side, design side, sales side. So it's like a lot of inputs, a lot of noise. Everyone wants to hear their voice, and the most effective product managers I find are able to cut through that noise, or able to like extrapolate little things, saying, okay, I've heard all this like download of information, and whether it's like what matters the most. And to your point, what's the core why we all here, what's the core problem that we're trying to solve here. And then the ones who are able to storytell it and bring people to that point of clarity, I think, because it's very
Yeah.
easy to regurgitate, saying, oh yeah, you said this, I said this, and the thing is that everyone's going to nod their head, but they're also they're like, right, saying, how are we getting to the point of uncertainty to a path of resolution? And that doesn't mean you need to have the solution to have, but it's like, this is how we're going to collectively work together. And again, to go back to your hot take number 3, I'm not going to dictate it and right, say that this is my way, but I'm going to somehow do, I would say, like, it's like behavior kung fu. It's like, essentially, you're going to influence a room to say, yeah, this is how we're going to do it. I've heard all your points, and we're going to do it in a way which is incremental, experimental, which is going to be outcome based, and then you move forward without, and then there's that point of clarity where you're like, that's right, Leslie, you're totally right. We're going to go this way.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. That in my experience, I agree with that based on some of the better product managers I work with, and in hindsight, like some of the points that I brought up in terms of, so taking a step back to directly answer your question in the negative, I think some of the a lot of folks trying to get into product management, they ask, oh, do I need, is it a project manager? Am I a product owner, writing user stories? Or, am I the boss, like the mini CEO? Those I would say are all not the best path to come into product management. To your point, I think the point that I got out of what you just said, and I agree with, is product managers are like this big empath. You're there to listen, to assess in real time everybody's points, everybody's ideas, and you lead through the clarity. What's at the end of the day, what are we trying? What is the objective, right? To provide an outcome to a customer, and you lead through having empathy for everybody's ideas and everybody's perspective, and bridging all that to what makes sense for the outcome that we're trying to drive to. That is not a CEO trying to dictate this, my idea is the best, right? I think I think it needs to be this. Therefore, these are our epics. That is not a project manager who's just trying to go through the motions of a Gantt chart. And that is definitely not a product owner whose job is to write, user stories and technical user stories. And in many ways is kind of solutioning as opposed to focusing on the outcomes.
Right. Another question that just came up was, it's actually a question regarding intentional networking. So
Yeah.
I think the I think you provide a really good, like, it's a good framework to assess the current, like your current network in like both like inside and then external. The question is more around, once you do that analysis, what next? Because
Yeah.
I think what they're suggesting is, whether it's depth, breadth, range, it's like, okay, how do I then improve on that? And I
Right.
think, and I'll add some commentary there because I've seen this as well too, is that I think people understand, like, okay, I need to expand my network, whether it's upwardly, whether it's, with others, whether there's other stakeholders across the company or externally. But I also think there's a lot of noise, like
Yeah.
internal, it's like, it could be due to, different levels. It could be because I was too busy. They don't have time. On external too, there's a lot of LinkedIn noise. So we'd love to
Right.
kind of get your point of view on that.
Yeah, I think internal obviously is a lot easier. Everybody is connected through um, a common mission of the company. Internal is a lot easier to have that network, but I would still think that you still want to be intentional about. I'm not, when I say be intentional about building your network, I'm not saying to be um, to be conniving and to be opportunistic, but really to think about how you want to broaden your network, what kind of people that you want to know to learn from. So that's what I mean by being intentional, right? Internal is a lot easier. One advice that I would give for when you're building a network is um, obviously you have to lean in as well. You have to give to get, and when you're networking, you definitely don't want to, we all get those LinkedIn posts where, hey, can you recommend me for this job? I don't know you, man. Like, how are we improving each other's skill set? I think so. Definitely, tip number one would be to make sure that it's a give to get, you know um, added value both ways. With external networks, I there are a couple of ways, right? There's a lot of trade groups. So Round and Rich are both groups that have very specific missions. And Rich is around technology leaders and kind of coaching each other. Round is product people. There are other networks out there like Product School, Products That Count. It's a network as well. And there's many ways for you to get into these networks, and then to make sure that you're giving as much as you're getting. The other thing that I've been doing as I've been networking is I ask people to recommend me, right? So when I talk to someone new, we exchange ideas. And I ask them, who would you recommend I speak to next in your network? And that's a very kind of easy question to ask, and to get to broaden that network effect by just asking a very simple question: who would you recommend me I talk with next?
Hmm. No, that's really good. I actually, yeah, that's a really good one. I might use it moving forward. No, I thought your points were totally on point, and yeah, I think there's different avenues, local,
Yeah,
online, um, and going back to intentional, being intentional about networking. I think you have to have advocates too. So to your point, you, depending on the range of your network, there's going to be someone that could be really influential in connecting you with the next sort of
yeah,
huge kind of light bulb type of moment. And it could be sitting on you, but you just never had that in-depth conversation or asked that question. So I think that what you said was, quite spot on.
The other thing I'll say is once you meet someone, it's very, very easy. Like you might think, so I'm a natural introvert. So it takes a lot of social battery for me to pick up the phone and call someone, or hey, would you like a virtual coffee? It's actually very easy once you have that first connection to keep in touch. Like send them a link. You might read something interesting that reminds you of Jimmy, who I talked to, who's in vehicles. I saw this interesting article that I read that is, I'm always doom scrolling on CNN anyway. There's an interesting article about vehicles, and I just simple send, hey, what do you think about this? It's a very, low bar in terms of like draining your social battery to have that, keep that connection alive. And once you make that connection, I would urge you to kind of keep those connections alive.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one comment from someone in the audience, but I think it's a really good fair point. So the point is, this aspect of doing more by doing less. So the key to achieving that is trust, essentially. So, as a PM, you're empowering people. So, and learning to trust them. So I think there's
Yeah.
again, how do you build trust as a PM?
Yeah. So that's a great point. So I think it bridges into my third hot take as well. I mentioned this idea of psychological safety. When either teams that I manage or teams that I work with, I think Luca's point, which I 100% agree with, is as a product manager, you want to show others that you trust them, that you respect them as a professional, that you respect their perspective that they may bring, and that's and you empower them by challenging them, saying,
Yeah.
hey, wouldn't it be great if if you come up with this XYZ thing, um, challenge them, and they, that way they feel like you not only respect them, but you believe that they can achieve more. And that's something, that I use with my teams and people that I work with all the time.
No, 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 I think that's very insightful. So I'm going to ask you a question. I have to ask you this question because if I don't, then I'm going to shoot myself. So the Pauline story that you said,
Yeah.
that's not you with your side venture, Steamy Dumplings, is it?
No. So those are, so funny you mentioned all those stories are actually true stories. Sam is me in my early career. And I hope this part of the Q&A and the recording resonates with folks that are trying to get into product management or are early in their career and having a lot of that kind of imposter syndrome. Right? Am I technical enough? Am I as good as that person? I was that person, right? I truly, Sam is actually me. I job hopped a lot. I didn't feel like I was technical enough. I was, I was master of none. I knew a lot of things, but I was master of none. I've done a lot of jobs. There was 1 year where I literally spent a year at a customer site. I watched their operations. I consulted in some kind of technology. But I didn't know it then. Truly, I didn't know it then. But those kinds of experience I use every day, right? And it gives me perspective. It allows me to have that empathy when we're talking about customers and go-to-market strategy and users, and I have that muscle memory because I was there. I've had that depth of experience. So I truly mean that in that first hot take. The second story with Pauline was actually one of my bosses. And true story. Pauline, again, I'm not using real names to protect. I'm not so innocent, I guess. But Pauline is a real person that truly felt that she was, the CEO of the product. It was her pet project. Micromanager. She would come to a weekly product meeting, and just drop an idea like, oh, would it be cool if you did this?
Yeah.
Why? Why? And it was like that for the whole stint that I was there, and it's real. It's been 6 years since they've been working on that, and there's still no real product.
Oh, jeez. Well, I was just checking time, and I think we're almost out of time here. So, Leslie, thank you so much for just being so vulnerable and just sharing just a lot of just personal, like just sharing just like how you've evolved to be just a mentor slash product leader. Because I think when I introduce you, and I think the times that we've talked to, it's extremely heartfelt. So I think that really resonated in today's conversation. So on behalf of Product That Counts, thank you again for just sharing. And for those on the call, please be in the lookout in your box, as we will be sharing this recording, as well as making it available on the Product That Counts portal, so you can watch it again and share with your colleagues. So
Yeah,
until
and
then, we'll see you
feel
next
free to
time.
reach out to me. I truly mean the networking bit. You wanna get to know me. I want to get to know you. So reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Well, Leslie, I will have to visit you when I go to New York, or when you come to Canada. Then we'll just have to meet up with a mutual friend in Montreal.
We
Okay.
will do that. Yes.
Okay. Cheers.
All right.
Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.